welcome everybody to What Keeps You Up at Night, Entrepreneurship During Challenging Times, Vancouver Startup Week edition. So we are very excited to be part and collaborate with Vancouver Startup Week for our third year in a row with Startup Vancouver. Some people get confused with Startup Vancouver, Vancouver Startup Week. Are you the same thing? Who are you? They're the people in the blue or green t-shirts and we're in the red. So that's the difference. We do a lot of the same similar things in our innovation ecosystem, but we're here to collaborate. We're not here to compete, and we just love to have the opportunity to be part of this year, this virtual event in day 2 of 3 with Vancouver Startup Week. So my name is Colin Weston. I am the community leader for Startup Vancouver, which is one of over 40 community chapters of Startup Canada across the country, as the voice for the over 3.5 million entrepreneurs. And our why, our purpose, just like the sign says behind me, I moved it in a different location today behind me, so I make sure it's over there. And that is to connect you as entrepreneurs to the resources, to all the events that we host and other people host, both locally, regionally, and nationally, and all the other resources, mentors, and most importantly, to each other, to other entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship, as we know, is hard. And it can be isolating and lonely at times. So the reason we do this show is part of that connectivity to not only enlighten and to inspire and to educate, but also to keep this a little bit fun too, to make sure that we have some levity as we go. So we'll make sure with our conversations today, we'll do just that. And our guests today are Annika Liu, who is the marketing manager in charge of the labs at League of Innovators. And we've had the pleasure of collaborating with them over the last couple of years. And also Alan Bailey, who is doing wonderful things actually within leadership community here with Uplevel People Partners, and also the other business that I'll talk about that she has kind of spun out of that. And also Tina Singh, who Tina's not joined us on the call here quite yet, but I'm going to be talking to her at the end, who's a senior trade commissioner with Global Affairs Canada. As we always do, we'd like to ask you as we take a deep breath, how's everybody doing today? Hopefully you're hanging in there okay during the second spike, the second wave, as we told was going to happen, and now we're in that with COVID. So I hope everybody's staying safe, staying engaged, staying free and mentally active there. You know, we're going to weather this storm and we're going to get through it together. So we are here for you in some small way that we like to do every single week here with the show. With Startup Vancouver, the best way to connect with us is through social media, whether it's through Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. That's where we are very active. Also on our LinkedIn page too, as part of the community with all of our events. And as I mentioned, all the other events that we support across the country here. We're also very active on our YouTube channel, where we have all recordings of previous events, including this one that's getting recorded right now, and we'll make sure we post that in a couple of days. So if you missed any of the previous ones with our amazing guests, you can go back there through our catalog. And while you're there, subscribe to our channel, because we want to get the conversation going and make that as vibrant as we possibly can. As I mentioned with Startup Canada, we are entrepreneurs working together to build a Canada for entrepreneurs and give a voice to that startup community. And as you can see here, between podcasts and what we actually do with awards and the Canadian Export Challenge last month, we are here to provide that connectivity with resources across the country and our other chapters. We want to make this an interactive show, a little different on Hopin today, but also, as I've seen, we actually have even kind of a more robust platform than we even have on Zoom. So we want you to participate. So after we finish our conversations with our speaker, our guests here today, which are going to run about 10, 12 minutes long, we want you to participate and ask questions to any of us, and especially the speaker that we just, the guest that we just finished talking to. So please be part of the conversation. We're not going to be doing this today per se because of the way that we got up on the donations here, but normally we have our charity partner that we're very proud of collaborating with, and that is jack.org, which is a national organization, a grassroots organization that supports mental health youth advocacy across the country by empowering young people to be the ambassadors and the advocates in schools mainly and in our communities here. We've raised over $500 so far, and we just love the fact that everybody here has participated and got involved with this. And normally I do a little singing shout out, but I'm going to do something a little bit different to end the show today with that. My amazing co-host, and now I consider very good friends, Maryam Mobini, who's the CEO of To Resonate, and Reza, founder at OVU. They will be talking to two of our guests today before I finish up. And on that note, as I mentioned, with Annika, who's involved with League of Innovators, Reza's going to kick things off here and have a chat with her. But all the good things is they're kicking off yet another cohort, is my understanding. So lots of exciting things with League of Innovators going on there. And then Maryam's going to have a conversation with Alain, who is doing amazing, impactful things with the Up Level Leadership Academy and the leadership coaching and the educational piece and the community building piece that Alain is doing there. So really excited to hear that conversation. And then hopefully if Tina jumps on here with us, that I'm going to have a conversation with her and all the good things that the Trade Commissioner Service are doing with global affairs across the country and her experience in Los Angeles and across the world with that. I am going to stop sharing my screen and I am going to hand it over to my good friend Reza to kick things off with a conversation with Annika. And as I mentioned beforehand, myself included, when we're not speaking on here, for all the panelists and hosts, that make sure we actually mute our mics and turn off our video to give them center stage. So Reza, my friend, take it away.
Hi everyone, my name is Reza. I'm the founder of OVU and I'm the co-host at What Keeps You Up at Night with Startup Vancouver every Tuesday. I'm excited to be part of this week's episode. It's a very unique format and we are getting to know you guys for the first time, and you guys probably see us for the first time. We've been doing this for 28 weeks now. This is exciting. This is the 28th episode that I'm part of. Annika, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Annika. I work with the League of Innovators, which is a national Canadian charity supporting young entrepreneurs. I'm hopping in today from the unceded ancestral territories of the Coast Salish peoples. Very grateful to work, play, live here, and my pronouns are she and them.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us. And Annika, I was looking at LOI, or League of Innovators, and I lost it. You know, it had me at youth. At the moment, there is an organization that focuses on youth and entrepreneurial skills. It's something amazing, and I want to hear more about it. Tell us a little bit about LOI.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So the League of Innovators, we support youth. And for us, that means folks who are ages 15 to 25 in their entire entrepreneurial journey, from discovery to acceleration, through a suite of accessible programs. So what that means is that we support young entrepreneurs from coast to coast across Canada, all the way from learning about what entrepreneurship is, what their purpose is, what problems they want to solve, all the way up to like building out their MVP, minimum viable products, scaling their ventures, raising money, exiting their company, and everything in between. And we do this through a bunch of different programs with our Innovators Academy, empowering educators, to our foundations, incubator that goes idea to like first product, our labs accelerator program, which right now has 35 youth-led startups, and our boost residency for scale-up ventures.
This is amazing. Now, walk us through what's it like? Where do people start? Let's say out of our audience, 50 people are watching right now. Either we have people under 25 or they know someone who is in startup and they're under 25. Where do they start? What should they expect?
Yeah. So it really starts with this intention to pursue something that's really important to you and your personal why. And more than ever, especially during COVID and general societal unrest happening right now, future-proof skills like an entrepreneurial skill set, entrepreneurial mindset, and solving like a real meaningful problem is more important now than ever, especially with youth who are building the future that we want to see for themselves. Getting started, you can really enter this journey no matter where you are. If you have an idea and you just don't know where to start, I'd recommend checking out our Foundations Incubator program. If you are already running a youth-led startup and you want to get access to like best-in-class resources and networks and a peer community of over 300 other young entrepreneurs across Canada, then Labs is for you. If you're scaling and you have employees, then our Boost residency would be for you. So essentially, at the end of the day, there's a place in our community for a young entrepreneur, no matter what stage of their journey they're in.
I've got to say, Annika, I personally, I wish I had something like this when I was under 25, because it's amazing how when you are part of a community of like-minded people, how much more you grow versus when you are, let's say, in university where you grow there in a different way, but everybody's doing different things. So it's really hard to, out of every class that you go in, find the entrepreneur, friends. Whereas you join in your community, LOI, it seems like all of a sudden you get exposed to 300 like-minded people in different stages of their business, and you can really excel just by that alone.
Yeah, not only quarantine, but being an entrepreneur on top of that can be a lonely experience. So time and time again, we hear that community is so valuable and important in supporting you, and bringing those folks into your sphere of influence is really exponential for your own personal professional growth. I agree. Like there's almost no downside when there's no fees, no equity, no strings attached to join this community of folks that really resonate with your own personal goals.
So is it completely free? Is there a catch with joining? What's happening?
Yeah, so we're generously supported by our partners. And so for the young entrepreneur themselves, the program is free. All you really need is an internet connection to be part of it. There's no charge. We don't take any equity. We don't take anything out of your company. We really want to be that unbiased partner and cheerleader for the work that you're doing.
Okay, and tell us how you guys have adjusted throughout COVID, because I know not only everything is online, but it's just the value prop is different. For example, I know in the education system, you can still learn online, but the learning, lacks quality, and you don't get the face-to-face, you don't get the quality interactions. How are you guys overcoming that?
That's a really great question. So when the League of Innovators was founded in 2017, we did take a virtual model, which was really unique, especially for to be able to achieve the scale of supporting youth across Canada. So thankfully, not too much has changed in terms of what our programming looks like. Especially for the accelerator program, since it was all happening virtually already. The thing that did change for us was we used to do a lot of in-person events or workshops, or our big founder showcase event that showcases the folks graduating out of the Labs program. And we moved all those pieces to the virtual space and experimented this summer with an idea to impact virtual summer camp with 400 youth interested in entrepreneurship hanging out on Zoom every day for a week, which is pretty exciting.
Nice, amazing. Tell us a little bit about what are some unique stories out of LOI. You know, the 300 members you guys have. What are some highlights we can take away?
Yeah, sure. Within our community, since we foster diverse startups in terms of geography or lived experience, business models from B2B SaaS to products to emerging nonprofits in various industries. There's a lot of really exciting stories. The best place to stay tuned on those would be the League of Innovators Instagram or other social media channels. But in terms of highlights for you, in COVID, it was really cool to see a lot of our entrepreneurs pivoting and even some of them starting new ventures. We've got folks who started like QR or menu ordering and payment systems, really targeting restaurants in Toronto. We had folks who are working in biotech, creating the world's first eco-friendly glow stick, to the female co-founders of Flick, the Female Laboratory of Innovative Knowledge. They just launched a new hub for female founders globally to be able to connect to each other and share skills and learning. But otherwise, we've got Katie from Boot Camps for Change. She was named one of Fast Company's innovative entrepreneurs for her work with homeless youth and empowering them to become fitness instructors.
Are you sure you have to be 25 and under? There's no way for somebody 27 can join? Because the moment you said QR, I was like, my startup is probably aligned with what you guys are doing.
Yeah. Our community, the programming is specifically targeted towards youth, but there are many ways for folks to get involved with our community, whether it be joining us as speakers or getting involved with our community hours to like brainstorm and have a dialogue with our community. There are definitely ways to be a part of it.
I'm personally reaching out right after the call, but I let my co-host Colin drop your LinkedIn so everybody else can. I'm sure he already done it. I just saw it, so you guys can join and connect. Anika, tell us also. I want to wrap this up because we have to be mindful of time. Mm-hmm. What keeps you up at night these days?
What keeps me up at night? Yeah, I think for me, there's just so much untapped potential and stories to tell about youth doing some really inspiring things that we're just starting to scratch the surface about what's possible there.
Amazing. This was Anika, the Labs Director at League of Innovators. I let everybody else jump in and ask questions. Guys who are watching, you can drop your questions in the chat, and I let my co-host Colin take over.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Reza. Anika, that was amazing. This kind of filled that bucket of all the good things that League of Innovators does, so we understand all that. I do see there's one question on chat here. I think you may have answered this already, but perhaps you can kind of double down on this one. So Bryce Wade asks, what services does the LOI support entrepreneurs with? I know you touched on that, but maybe you can kind of clarify that again.
Yeah, for sure. So services wise, if you're early on in your entrepreneurial journey, we have our Innovators Academy, which has modules and workbooks that you can go through to get those gears turning around entrepreneurship. And I can pop these links in the chat afterwards. We've got our incubator program that helps you get from idea to your first minimum viable product. We'll also link that. Labs is a little bit more robust in terms of those services. We do mentorship, group coaching, one-on-one coaching. You get access to office hours with experts in residence, workshops, and Ask Me Anything sessions with serial entrepreneurs and investors. And then, of course, all that great like community building, networking piece flows through all of that.
Awesome. I think that answers Bryce's question there. Just one more quick question I have. I don't know, Maryam, if you want to jump on with a question before we jump onto the conversation that you're going to have with Alain. But because people may get confused because there's so many really great supporting organizations out there. So what would be the differentiator, would you say, between yourself and Futurepreneur, even though I know you collaborate on certain things because they really focus on young entrepreneurs also? What would you say would be your kind of your differentiator between what they offer and what LOI offers?
Yeah, Futurepreneur is an amazing partner and startup ecosystem support. First of all, how we define youth is slightly different. For Futurepreneur, those are folks who are 40 years old and younger. Futurepreneur services are really around funding in terms of loans, which are non-dilutive funding, meaning that they don't take equity out of your company. And they also complement all that great work with mentorship that's relevant to your startup. What's different between that and the League of Innovators is that we have a like more programming to say, so that there's workshops and sessions that really like build those entrepreneurial skills and mindset to help get you to work through the big problems and work on your startup. And then we can connect you with folks like Futurepreneur should you need funding and looking for that next step and mentorship support.
Awesome.
Does that answer your question?
It certainly does. So one thing I did want to mention here is the other event series that we have is our Can Startup Stories, where we always celebrate an underrepresented community within entrepreneurship, and young entrepreneurs are one of the ones that we've celebrated before. And League of Innovators was our co-presenter on that back in the days when we actually can be in a space. People remember those days, but we're doing that virtually now. And we haven't set a date for this one. We're probably in the next couple of months, whether it's December, January, or February, we will be celebrating young entrepreneurs again. And we're really looking forward to having the opportunity to collaborate with LOI again on that one. So everybody stay tuned for that. So Annika, Reza, again, thank you for that conversation. I'm going to turn off my video and mute my mic right now. And Maryam, if Alan, you can turn it on. And Maryam, I'll turn it over to you for our next conversation.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Colin. Hi, everyone. My name is Maryam. I'm the founder of To Resonate, and I'm here with the founder of Up Level Leadership Academy. Ilan, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Maryam. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So just going to ask you a series of questions to dive into, just learning more about yourself and also your business. So just wondering, what is one word that describes your life mission, and that is a driving factor that gets you out of bed every morning?
It's hard to find one word that captures it all. I would say growth. And to contextualize that, when I think about what's happening in the world today and all of the things coming to a head at the same time, like we are in this tsunami of complexity and challenge. And I notice for myself that I get bigger in that, that instead of feeling a lot of fear and retreat and, which there's a lot of that as being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of risk involved. But I noticed that I actually get bigger in the challenges, and it ties for me in with what I did my master's work on, which is really, how do you lead? How do you grow as a human being, as an organization, through complexity? And what I've learned is that you actually need complexity, that if you're just in your comfort zone, you're coasting.
I love it. So. That certainly resonates. The uncertainty for me has been a driving factor as well, the unknown. And I see you work with a lot of great leaders, and you try to find their gifts and really let them shine and empower them. And I'm wondering, what are some of the frameworks that you use in your coaching and some of the programs that you offer?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. The fundamental for me, there is a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that says, "Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic." And the foundation of the coaching work I do is to bring those two things together. Now, it's worth definition because power and love are two of the most misused terms socially. So power, in the way that it was defined by Paul Tillich, who was a theologian that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. studied under, the way that he defined power is the drive to self-realize. Entrepreneurs, we live that every day. We've probably had the experience of feeling like we're in a box, feeling like we can't be our biggest, fullest expression in the world. And so we stretch ourselves into entrepreneurship. We take big risks. So power is the drive to self-realize, whereas love, separating it from the way that it's often maybe used or in the common vernacular, love is the drive for unity and connection. So it is that I have a drive to self-realize, but not at the expense of other people or at the expense of the planet, right? So that is the foundation. And one of the things that I do in my coaching is really just encourage people to look at where they are in their life, where they're feeling stuck, because we all have places where things flow and they flow easily. And then we have other areas where it's like, I've been at this for many years and it feels like I'm not making progress, whether it's fully launching your business, losing weight. I mean, there's all sorts of different things, and it's different and unique for each of us. So I have people look at, in those situations where you feel like you're not making that progress, where is power? Where is love? And often underneath it, there is this feeling of, I don't have the power. I'm not enough. I don't have enough. I don't have enough resources, time, energy. I'm the wrong age. I'm the wrong color. I'm the wrong weight, whatever. And also there is often this sense of separation, feeling like it's not me, I'm not worthy, I can't do. So, I do that, what I call deep tissue work. And I marry it because I spent a lot of time also working as a business coach and working in organizations. So you kind of get the flavor that what I'm about is whole life leadership. And if you're not kind of working on those internal things, you often find yourself stopped in being able to meet goals or take risks or step forward because you've got this sort of internal thing that's holding you back. So I do the balance of, what's out here and practical, but also making sure that any barriers that come up, that we work through those so that you fully take your power back and you're able to kind of be fully expressed in the world in your leadership.
I love everything that you shared, and I couldn't agree more, especially for startup founders. It's so essential. Sometimes I feel like at the beginning of your hero's journey,
Yes.
you're not so connected with your inner knowing, your inner self, to know whether it's, actually having an investor to come invest in my company, would that really be the best choice for me? Do I know myself enough to say yes to this person? I mean, what are my values?
Yes.
So I love that you're working on that piece. It's so valuable to be a driver of, the inner leadership and also the entrepreneurship too. I think it's something that, it, as you said, it's supposed to be together. And oftentimes I see, curriculums that are not.
Yeah.
And I question, like, how is that separate? So I was wondering, looking at your website, and I noticed that you're working on your own coaching app, right? It's in beta right now. And I'm wondering, what is it that you thought is missing from the coaching apps that are out there right now, that perhaps inspired you to build your own?
Yeah, it's so perfect. I'll talk a little bit about the app and then how that ties in with the community that we launched. I noticed that's a theme here today. Shout out, Annika. With the app, I was doing my master's work and really looking at where are the gaps in leadership development? What are the typical ways in organizations that we approach leadership development? And part of our history is that we focus on people who are already managers, already executives, people who have been identified as high potentials. I get it. There's an economic factor there. Leadership development can be, again, it's that deep tissue work. You don't always see, it's a long play, so you don't see results in the short term. And it can be a big investment of time and resources and dollars. I was out to come up with a cost and time effective way to facilitate growth, and growth for everybody, not just those who have already been identified. I've worked in many organizations where I had so much potential walking in the door and couldn't figure out how to navigate the systems and the social structures long enough to really express that potential. So I wanted something that was available to everybody, first of all. Secondly, again, part of the industry is we do training, we do workshops, we do retreats. And then there is, you go back to your life, you go back to your work, and then there's the application. And the support for application and accountability was the place that was lacking for me. So the app was designed around the idea of having people be able to learn from their on-the-job, on-the-go experiences. And some of that work I talked about with that deep tissue work, it's for people to be able to unpack their own experiences and realize for themselves, there's a narrative that's actually getting in my way. It's not the circumstances. It's actually not my boss. Or, maybe I don't have the greatest boss. But there is more that I can do when I realize that the narrative that I have about my experiences is actually the thing that's getting in the way. So the app was designed to kind of fill that gap, be something that's with you on the go, in your pocket. And as you start to kind of reflect on your experiences, you get a little bit of this distance to be able to see that maybe there's more different ways that you can approach it. It's like having a coach in your pocket.
I love it. So, and the app is in beta version right now,
right? Yeah.
Getting tested. So, how do your clients come to that realization or awareness? Are they working with a coach, or how does that work?
So this is brand new. Today is the launch of the Up-Level Leadership Academy. It's been there in the background quietly, working with a small group of clients. I have a 6-week program that I do on authentic leadership. So I did that with a cohort, took them through. I did a retreat for Author Your Life where women, and these programs were focused on women, but women come together and they're like, you're the director, the author, and the lead actor of your life. And so how do we take that power back? What we've done now with the community, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the we in a second, but what we've done now with the community is we've said, every time I lead a group coaching program, which is distinct from when I do one-on-one, every time I lead a group, there is always the dynamic that emerges from the people in the room. And it's always exactly the right people. And we stretch each other and challenge each other and take each other in deeper ways. So for me, the app has its place, but what I've really noticed is effective is bringing people together in groups. So the community now is a way of having us be together in community, especially as we're navigating these times, which for many people feel so divisive, from social division, racial division, political division, economic uncertainty, environmental degradation. I mean, it's all there right now. And the idea of coming together as a community of practice to learn together how to be in conversation, how to have difficult conversations, how to relate and see different perspectives. And then while we're doing that, we're actually developing our leadership. So one of the things that we've brought in with the community site is to bring in a bit of gamification so that you can see what it is. Like, my mission in the world is to up-level 10,000 leaders. What does that mean? Well, how do you measure the growth of a leader? And so what we've done is we're introducing a system that's like karate, when you get your white belt, your yellow belt. And as you demonstrate certain competencies in your leadership, you go up the levels in the belts, right? So we can celebrate that together. And then based on the work that we're doing together, based on the way that we engage in community and conversation. So we show up to a conversation like this, and I can sit and observe. And I might type in the chat. I might leave and be like, oh, these are my takeaways from today. But what if there was this opportunity for us to actually engage, and we left you with a takeaway? It's like, what's one thing you're going to go do from the conversation today? And then come back in a couple of weeks and tell me how that went. And as you do that, we're like, okay, how did it go? Oh, I totally failed. This happened and that happened and that. Well, what I see as a coach is that you're demonstrating resilience. You're demonstrating the ability to pick yourself back up and keep moving. I see that competency being developed. So now you get the rank, right? And as you build those muscles over time, you start to up level. So like, let's have some fun with it, right? Like, transformational leadership can sometimes feel heavy, and it can feel lonely and isolating. And we have a tendency to think we're the only ones that have ever gone through this. So, it's an opportunity to do it together.
It's great. That was going to be my next question about the metrics, and it's lovely that you already have something in place. Colin, is it time? I have one more question.
Go for it. And then we've got it's great that on chat it's been a very vibrant conversation. There are some questions, but Maryam, go for it. Why don't you ask a question, and then we'll jump over to chat to provide some of the questions the attendees have for Milan.
Well, I just want to end it with this, and this is if this is about this week or during COVID, like, what is the inner knowing that is coming up for you this week? That inner voice that on a particular topic or issue that wants to get out and be heard.
Yeah. So and it's it's my mantra for living. So it is beyond this week. It's the world needs your leadership now, and the emphasis is on your. What I do is when I meet young people who are new into the work world or they're leading their lives. And there's this tendency we have to be looking over our shoulder thinking someone else is coming. No one else is coming, it's you. And for me, that's again why it was so important to create something that was cost effective so that organizations could have all of their employees do leadership development work and not have it bust the budget, right? And we're holding each other accountable. We're having people who are more personally responsible for what's happening in the organization, what's happening in the world. So that's the takeaway is the world needs your leadership and the time is now.
Thank you. That's so valuable.
I love this. The gamification of leadership growth. It's amazing. It's so clear what you have with up level. Now it all makes sense to me now. It's so clear. So I see a question here. I'll ask Reza, maybe if there's more, or Reza, if you have a question, you can jump on in a minute or two. But we have Leijo Huang asks, what is it like running a beta during the pandemic? And expands to also ask, what strategies do you have for bringing in clients? I guess you're onboarding your own clients.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's actually one of the leadership competencies. So the competencies are holism, you're taking care of your whole life, right? The other is adaptive. The other is integrative, where you're bringing the pieces together and really building that muscle. And the final one is co-creation. And so that's how I've done everything from the beta perspective. I used to be really hesitant in the back. It had to be perfect. And I couldn't, it's not quite the way I need it to be. And I've had to overcome that over the years. And so the way that I've done that is to co-create. I reach out to people all the time on LinkedIn, and it's like, would you want to have a 30-minute coffee chat with me? I'm curious about what's happening in your world right now and what's happening with your leadership. And, the conversation I started when I first launched my beta program was about imposter syndrome. And, people were able to open up because I was like, here's my story about imposter syndrome. Here's how I've been dealing with it. Tell me about you and what your challenges are. So having people share their real experiences, making sure that I'm not imposing my programs on people. It's like, okay, I have some wisdom to share, but how does that actually connect to the experiences, challenges they're facing right now? And to celebrate co-creation is a value. So it's like you are part of a beta, but you're helping me co-create it, and having people that are excited about being part of the founding of it.
I love this. And you just touched on a couple of attributes that successful entrepreneurs need to have. And that one is curiosity, you touched on, that really ties into empathy, which also ties into your ability to listen and ask questions and really use that as a launch pad for then going down that right path. I love the fact you also touched on wanting something to be perfect before you release it. That ties into the whole kind of lean startup methodology too, is like sometimes you just need to get it out there. And I know I've had that syndrome also, that you want your baby to be perfect. You don't want anybody to tell you that your baby's ugly. Sometimes you just got to get your baby out there and see what happens. Right. I know that Reza's the same way with launching Ovu, that you just have to get it out there and then get the customer feedback loop and listen, ask questions, see what resonates. And Alain, with what you're doing here, you're creating not only a service, but a platform that then ties into an app and a product. So you've kind of dovetailed these other things into it's not only a SaaS service and recurring revenue model, but also as a high touch service. From. So there's certain complexities there that looks to me like you've managed to, by asking questions and being curious, being able to move that forward quite nicely.
Thank you.
So Reza, hey, before we turn it over and Tina and I have a conversation here, do you see anything else in chat? Or Reza, do you have a question or any comments?
I have a question myself, not in the chat, but Alain, we are LinkedIn friends for a while, I think. Yeah. So finally, great to meet you, in video chat mode.
Yeah.
So this is great. And I love how you approach connections. I want to know, because we have a lot of people in the audience that are either consultants or they're trying to find clients for their services. A lot of people I find are sensitive towards sales. how do you reach out to connect with people in an authentic way and really find their problems and have a value there, as opposed to come across too salesy?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you asked that question, and I really do hope this the audience can find themselves in my answer, because the reality is, so later this week I'm doing a talk called "From Imposter Syndrome to Authentic Leadership," and for what you may not realize is, prior to relaunching my business in the middle of coronavirus and the whole racial uprising, this was at the end of May, beginning of June. I had for the last year been working as a consultant in somebody else's organization, and a big part of my role was sales, and it felt like everything I did failed. All of the methods to, referrals and have conversations, it was like pushing a rock up the hill all the time. And I took the risk of this doesn't feel like me, and I don't feel like I'm being my authentic self. And I took the risk to make a change. And in that, things have shown like they are coming to me. I am not pushing for anything. I am not beating down anyone's door. I'm not pushing myself on anyone. There's no pressure. And in that, the right people are showing up, and it's almost effortless. Yes, I have to be intentional. Yes, I have to be thoughtful about what I'm putting together and does it actually provide value. But there is something about getting in line with your authentic self and approaching sales.
I love it. I love it.
No?
There's so much I could talk in this and ask you questions, but I have to be mindful of time. I'm going to hand it to Colin, but thank you for sharing that. That was valuable.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Maryam, for the conversation and for Reza jumping in there. Actually, Alan, your last comment there, being your authentic self. I remember back in the day, my dad said this one thing to me that, or said lots of things to me. One that actually sticks is he always said that the truth is easier to remember than a lie, and that goes about your authenticity that you have. Right. In fact, that is so easy to remember. I remember as a teenager, you don't listen to anything your parents say. But that one stuck with me there, that the truth is easier to remember than a lie. So shout out to my dad on that one. Good job, Grant.
I'm going to quote him. Grant Colin. I'm going to quote him somewhere.
There we go. So, okay. Well, Alan, Reza, Maryam, thanks so much for that. So, hey, to finish up here, our third conversation I'm going to have is with Tina Shi. Now, Tina, you and I have talked. We talked last week. First, I'm going to ask you, have I pronounced your last name correctly? Because I was going to ask you beforehand, but I didn't have the chance.
Thank you, Colin. Yes, my name is Tina Shi. Thank you very much for having me.
I nailed it.
I'm so inspired already from this conversation today. Thank you.
And you have shown entrepreneurial tenacity here, because I know you were having problems technically getting on, but you didn't give up, and here you are. So you're here to join us here. So rather than me having to talk to myself for 10 minutes here, which I'm sure we'd lose lots of attendees immediately, that we don't have that problem. So before we get started here, I'm going to give a little elevator pitch for what you do, Tina. So Tina, you are a Senior Trade Commissioner at Global Affairs Canada, and Canadian trade commissioners are located in more than 160 cities worldwide, and they help entrepreneurs and investors achieve global growth by providing strategic business insights, market access, and an unbeatable network of international contacts. So with that, hopefully justice with that. Perhaps you can agree or disagree. That's what you do, or maybe you'd like to add a little bit more about what you're doing with Global and in the Trade Commissioner Service.
Thank you so much, Colin, for your kind introduction. I am honored to be here today, and I am also honored to serve with the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service. It is a global network, and we are Canadian businesses, foreign investors in market outside of Canada, your network. So for those entrepreneurs who are listening today, if you are thinking of taking your products and or services outside of Canada, we are your go-to service provider outside of Canada within the government of Canada, and we very much look forward to working with you, and as well as with this wonderful ecosystem of network of people in Canada to support you.
Wonderful. And you're based, if I understand, you're based in Ottawa, are you not?
Yes, I am currently based in Ottawa. I am back in Ottawa after serving abroad for 10 years.
10 years. Wonderful. Well, I just wanted to state that's the fact that with What Keeps You Up at Night, this is a show that has national reach, not only with our guests, but also our audience. And as we grow with our 28th episode here, we're really excited because it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And we are certainly positioning this to be a national platform for entrepreneurship. So Tina, so we'll kind of rewind the tape on your life before you came back to Ottawa. Our previous conversation, you mentioned that you were in Los Angeles for a number of years. So all the entrepreneurs and founders that are part of, and investors, I know there's some on here too, as part of our group here attending today. I didn't even know what the heck the Trade Commissioner Service was a couple of years ago. So perhaps you can distill it down and tell us exactly what your role was in Los Angeles, or maybe provide a couple of success stories that you had to clarify exactly what it is you do and why you do it.
Thank you very much, Colin. It's a very good question. The Trade Commissioner Service, we've been around for 125 years. And in fact, we're celebrating our 125th anniversary this year. We originally obviously started as part of the Canadian Diplomatic Services, but with special assignment to report and then discuss about trade-related matters. And of course, 125 years later, as you mentioned, we're a global network, and we have support programs that provides entrepreneurs as well as investors access, and it's a wonderful platform to bring people together and then to do business. I'm very fortunate to have had the opportunity to serve in California twice in my career, in Los Angeles as well as in San Francisco. Hence, my 8 years there gave me the opportunity to learn all about the U.S. As well as a very competitive global market in terms of looking at the technology and the innovation and as well as science and technology partnership, which is also very robust coming out of California, as we all know. So very privileged to have had the opportunities to serve, and yeah, definitely looking forward to working and continue working with all of the entrepreneurs here in Canada domestically, and then to supporting your global endeavors as we look to rebuild in terms of our economic losses from the COVID, and looking at new opportunities that will be available to our entrepreneurs, as we recover.
Great stuff. Great stuff. So as an entrepreneur, let's say, and perhaps some people can ask this within chat, but let's give a scenario or a case study here. Let's say I'm an entrepreneur with a startup and we have product ready for market to commercialize, and we want to go to the United States first. Let's say you were still in San Francisco. Maybe it's for introductions for investment, or perhaps potential customers to kind of bridge those gaps and make those introductions. And let's say I was in the clean tech space. Let's say in just an example here. Let's say it was in agritech, in farming. I've got a great product here. How would they reach out to you or to Global Affairs, a Trade Commissioner Service, to, let's say they're looking at there's opportunities in the States? Would it be all in the United States, or I'm assuming that it would have to be focused in one of the 160 cities that you're in, that you can be more actionable to help them if it was tied into, let's say, well, I'll let you talk about that. Let's say I was interested in connecting and going to the States. How can you help someone go international then through what you provide?
Thank you, Colin, for this. This is a very valid and very useful questions for a lot of our entrepreneurs. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, there is my 12 months now exactly back home in Canada. I'm very encouraged and very excited to see this very robust ecosystem to support the entrepreneurs and to help with your global strategies. And basically, in addition to wonderful organizations such as Startup Canada, League of Innovators. There's also Business Development Bank of Canada, Export Canada, as well as the Trade Commissioner Services, and as well as provincial partners. We are a big network of people who are willing and open to support entrepreneurs going global's endeavor. So as you prepare and as you look into, say, San Francisco in your export market strategy, please reach out to either BDC or EDC or your local trade commissioner services. We also have regional offices across Canada. I would encourage you to contact one of us as a one-stop shop, and we will refer you to the government network that could provide you the support that you need to look at your the market opportunities in San Francisco. And our trade commissioners in San Francisco, in turns, will be able to facilitate connections and provide you with market briefing information before you go into the market.
Wonderful. And to reinforce the last piece you said there, as far as facilitate connections, I can talk from a personal success story with the Trade Commissioner Service, that when I'm wearing my other hat, my entrepreneurial hat, as a co-founder of a business in the sport technology space, is I connected with the Trade Commissioner Service, and they reached out to me and invited me last year in 2019 to attend the LA Sports Summit. So we got a chance to meet the Consul General down in LA, and that's just it. They facilitated all these introductions and meetings. We had a thought leadership speaking opportunity at that conference. So all these opportunities. So the things they don't do, just to reinforce for all the entrepreneurs out there, you don't provide funds, you don't provide that type of resource, but as far as brokering connections, making introductions in that city or that region where that senior trade commissioner happens to be working in, those are the type of things you can do. You talked about Export Development Canada, and also with BDC, they provide those other pieces, those other legs to the stool, if you will. So we've had a great positive experience with the Trade Commissioner Service in Los Angeles. And I do encourage entrepreneurs out there that are looking to go global, and whether it's in the States or elsewhere, to definitely connect with Tina and all of her colleagues with the Trade Commissioner Service. So I don't know, Tina, if there's anything else you wanted to add to that with what I had mentioned there with my own personal positive success story with working with your people.
Once again, thank you, Colin, for your kind word in terms of your experience with my colleagues in LA. It's a fantastic team over there. Of course, I know them very, very well. So shout out to them and for their hard work. In terms of funding support, actually, Global Affairs Canada, through the Trade Commissioner Service, we do have CanExport funding for small business, which I would encourage all of you to take advantage of. Please go to our website. You can see if you are in need of funding support for, say, translation or in terms of adapting, pivoting your strategy as you look into diversifying your export market. Please look into the criteria to apply for CanExport funding support. That's there for you to help as you look into expanding globally.
Amazing. So we only have a couple of minutes left here. Reza, I see in chat that you're putting in some connections. Oh, I see before I even, you're so fast, man. You're fast on the draw today. So he's already put the,
I'm trying.
He's already put the link in there for CanExport. He also
Yes.
has the link for Tina on LinkedIn there if you want to connect with her directly there. So with that, Reza,
if we have time, I want to ask Bryce's question, and if we have time, I'll have a question myself. Bryce is asking, what's your thought on the trade situation with China? How do you think China and US, what's happening out there will affect Canadian businesses?
Thank you very much. This is a very valid question. China is a very important market for Canada as well as for many different countries. As China becomes more economically and technologically influential in the global economy. All the country, including Canada's, we look at adjusting our policies and approaches into accessing the Chinese market, and to ensure that we have a healthy trade and investment relationship with China. And I know that the China team is working very hard at looking at some of these trade irritants and issues. And I think it's an ongoing process that requires, just like COVID, adjustments from our parties as we continue to move forward.
Amazing. Thank you, Tina. I know I have more questions. I know more people are having questions. Definitely connect with Tina on LinkedIn. I'm gonna reach out to you after the show and connect with you as well.
Good
For
stuff.
sure. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
So we only have a couple minutes left here, but there's no reason why we can't run over. We're 3 or 4 minutes here. It's not a problem because the session does go on a little longer than just the 60 minutes. So I did see that there are a couple more questions here. Reza, do you want to read the question that Thomas Bain had?
So Thomas is outside of Canada, Tina. And Thomas is asking, what about Canada export funding if the company is manufacturing out of Canada? Is this possible? Canada registered company, but the manufacturing and selling is overseas.
The Canadian and the Canada Export Funding is specifically for Canadian registered SME. So you have to be a Canadian company in order to take advantage of this program.
So if you are a Canadian company, but your operation is outside of Canada, does that still cover?
Well, there is specific funding criteria.
Got it.
I would encourage you to contact my colleagues, because depending on what type of operation that's located outside, completely understandable, because we are in a global economy after all.
Perfect. Thomas, there you have it. Reach out to Tina and learn from there. Go from there.
And Tina, we were talking about this last week, or we talked about lots of things on the Startup Canada Canadian Export Challenge, where we met as judges on one of the panels here. And this term came up last time to clarify what made in Canada really means or defines. Is that another thing you were saying we need to talk to someone to define what criteria or kind of what bucket you fall into there? Is even though you've got a Canadian registered corporate SME, but your products are actually made outside of Canada?
Precisely. I think obviously different jurisdictions have different definition in terms of what constitute a local company. In fact, as we all know, different provinces have different registration processes. However, that said, I think for Canada, we recognize that companies are global, and then they do have to source and will have to have plants and or operation elsewhere. And so I think depending on the program categories, I would highly encourage, again, entrepreneurs to contact us. Please don't hesitate. I think sometimes we may get intimidated by contacting the government, thinking of long waiting lines. I think I've also experienced that as a Canadian citizen in terms of calling for other Canadian services as well. But I do really encourage you that there is a strong team of Canadian government officials, from the Trade Commissioner Services to BDC to EDC, and as well as CCC, Canadian Commercial Corporations. Should you be in the business of doing government contracting, they would be in a position to help out. We would be happy to look into all of the options and to work with you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So we'll have one more question here. We'll go a couple minutes over, but we can keep going, and then we'll have Maryam close the show for us today. So Bryce has a question here for you, Tina. So what industries do you see as having a large growth potential or have been showing above average growth for international export? I'm sure that's even shifted the last 6 months, of course, with COVID and the kind of the health tech, kind of the med technologies too. So he's curious to hear that. Where do you think what sectors are frothy right now in the international scene?
Absolutely. This is a very good and very pertinent questions as we all interestingly observing what's happening in the last 6 months and then trying to see and sort of gain a better understanding and to plan ahead what could happen. I think certainly the health care sector is in great need of support and investment and of course additional innovation. So that is going to continue to be an industry that is going to attract a lot of attention. And as we talk about rebuilding our economy, economic recovery, we want to build on a clean economy. So as such, clean tech infrastructure will continue to be dominating in terms of industry and infrastructure investment side of things. And not to mention, well, agri-tech as well. Colin mentioned in San Francisco that is also very big, but it's also very big elsewhere because from this pandemic, we can see the very fragile global supply chain, and in particular in terms of agriculture and agri-food sector. And so looking at the sustainability of the agriculture industry and the viability of all of
Got
it.
it. Good stuff. Thank you for that. So we've got lots more questions, but we're going to leave it at that. So people, as we talked about, if you're on the session, thanks so much for joining us today. Here we had over 40 people at the peak here, which is amazing. And we thank you for that. I also want to thank Vancouver Startup Week for collaborating on this with us. This has been great. This experience has really been a positive one for us. I will not be doing my usual musical shout out here this week because we didn't have any donations. I just can't give that away for free.
No music.
No, Reza, Maryam, but you guys know that. I just can't give that away for free. There's value there. And I'm glad everybody turned on their videos here as we end. So we all have us on screen here. So to end the show today, Maryam, I'd like to hand it over to you to say a few final words.
Thank you so much, Colin. I would like to take a moment to thank Vancouver Startup Week as well for their support and for everyone who joined us for this session, very engaging conversation. I'm so honored to be among all of you who are trying to do such good in the world, bringing more peace and working on such good projects. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ilan. Thank you, Anika and Tina, for being here, for sharing your wisdom. And to my co-hosts, Reza and Colin, you can, of course, catch us next week at, at 12 o'clock instead of 12:30. And catch this video later on. Will be uploaded on YouTube, unedited. That's how we like to do it. So,
absolutely.
Nice.
Thank you.
And links are in the chat, guys. Facebook and YouTube. We do this every week. This is the 28th week. Definitely join us on both those platforms.